Want to make a difference in your community but not sure how? Go to GoFundMe.com right now and start a GoFundMe. Seriously. Your next fundraiser doesn't have to start in a school parking lot or a church basement. You can start a GoFundMe today in just minutes. Fundraise for yourself, a friend or family member, or an organization. All that matters is that you care about them. GoFundMe is the trusted place to fundraise for what you care about. With no pressure to hit your fundraising goal, but tons of tools to help you reach it, you can confidently start fundraising right now. Whether it's creative, local, or critical, your cause matters. And there's a reason why GoFundMe is backed by millions and chosen by fundraisers everywhere. It works, and it matters. GoFundMe helps you make a real difference. Start your GoFundMe today at GoFundMe.com. That's GoFundMe.com. GoFundMe.com. This is a commercial message brought to you by GoFundMe.
Time is precious, and so are our pets. So time with our pets is extra precious. That's why we started Dutch. Dutch provides 24/7 access to licensed vets with unlimited virtual visits and follow-ups for up to 5 pets. You can message a vet at any time and schedule a video visit the same day. Our vets can even prescribe medication for many ailments, and shipping is always free. With Dutch, you'll get more time with your pets and year-round peace of mind when it comes to their vet care. Go to Dutch.com to get vet care that is always there for just $92 a year.
Please remember that any individual referenced in the podcast should be considered innocent until found guilty in a court of law, and any opinions or views expressed in the podcast are solely those of participants. Some of the content discussed in the podcast may contain violence or graphic descriptions and may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
On December 5th, 1978, winter settled over Mississippi's Gulf Coast. The day had peaked at 59 degrees, but by nightfall, the air had dropped to a sharp 36. The roads lay still and silent. And along Ladnier Road, one of the few lights breaking the darkness came from a small brick convenience store, its wide glass windows glowing like a beacon in the night. Inside, 20-year-old Debra Gunter worked the graveyard shift at the little general store. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The cooler droned in the back. It was the lonely soundtrack of another midnight shift. Debra believed it was her chance to build something better for herself and for her husband. But Debra was young, determined, still searching for her own peace and happiness. And then, sometime in the dark hours before dawn, she was gone. The little general store once promised shoppers that it only takes a minute. For Debra, those words became something else entirely, because a minute was all it took for everything to change. 4 days later, her body was discovered in the woods of McIntosh, Alabama, 85 miles from the store. It was a brutal murder that has haunted 2 states for more than 4 decades. The truth has never come out of the shadows. This is the story of Debra Gunter and the search for answers that has never stopped.
Hey guys, and welcome back. You'll hear our full conversation right here on the podcast as usual. But if you want to watch the interview, we've also posted the video version on our YouTube channel.
So last week, we shared the first half of our conversation with Lieutenant Versiga delving into Debra's case from an insider's look at the early investigation. We continue that discussion and much more as we bring you part 2. If you haven't listened or watched part 1 yet, we encourage you to do so before jumping into part 2. But here are some highlights from part 1.
Lieutenant Darren Versiga has been in law enforcement since 1986, beginning as a loss prevention officer at TGNY before working as a correctional officer and later a patrol officer with the Pascagoula Police. Over the years, he's served as a city detective, narcotics investigator, and DA's office investigator. He even founded his own firm, Covert Investigations and Consulting Services, before returning to Pascagoula PD, where he now serves as shift lieutenant. He has spent decades untangling complex cases, and he's one of the few people still asking hard questions about what happened to Debra Gunter.
Every year, anniversary date, or the death date, or the birth date of the victim, we should be putting them out there in public. People's emotions change over years, so they may be hardened, and now they're getting close to what they consider death. They want to confess to their priest or their best friend, or get it off their chest. It's been their burden for so long. And you never want to give up how many times someone's been stabbed, or really their manner of death, how they were killed. You really want to keep that to your heart.
Where her body was left was in the woods by this abandoned drive-in theater. And so you almost think like whoever would have done that had to be familiar enough with the area to know that was a place to go.
Absolutely.
You say if they were the ones that were the killers, which came first? Do you think that they were robbers that decided to start killing, or was killing the primary and it just happened to give them some way,
One of the first questions that people always ask is, well, what about the husband?
And lo and behold, she comes back and is killed the same very way that the other lady was in Warner, Georgia. That combined with the husband having disconnect maybe, because now in 2010, 2012, 2013, when I'm pulling all these suspects that have been arrested since the 70s, then I've got a pool of suspects they didn't have back then when Debra was killed. They've done there were more than you can shake a stick at when it came to these convenience stores. That was the place people were getting their victims. And it was all over. It wasn't just here, it was everywhere.
And now for part 2 of an inside look with Darren Versiga.
It comes up, they want to exhume her body. This is strange to me because it's a state toxicologist that's doing her autopsy. But They need to exhume her body to get her fingerprints and blood sample, which you would think that if it's a toxicologist performing the autopsy, they probably would have done that stuff, right? Because they would need to, test the level. So that was like bizarre to me that wasn't done. But they say it's connected to a car that was stolen around the same time. It's been recovered. That's a detail that's like, for every other detail that's out there, that detail isn't out there until you like go back and start digging and find one thing about where the guy references him getting busted on this. And they had a woman with him. And I was like, God, this is so cliche. She tried to steal another car and ran it into a ditch. I was like, come on, you're giving women drivers a really bad name right now. But with all the other information out there, if you have a car that you think is potentially linked to this, why wouldn't you give a detail of that car, like a description, so that anybody in the area could say, oh, wait, I saw that car? Wouldn't that be a little bit more useful than all of the details of the crime scene?
Yeah, that's like one of the most standard things that you would put out there if you had that kind of a description versus all the other stuff that they put out there.
Yeah.
But again,
I'm sure you've done the timeline now. So that car was stolen in the early hours before she was ever taken. Okay. It was the early hours of that date that she went to work that turned into the next date, really. So it was a lot of confusion. They were thinking that when they first came up with that the car was stolen and then she was kidnapped and then killed on the way to Warner Robins, Georgia, which is where they found the car, which was oddly where she's from.
Right.
When I saw that, I went, what? And so
what are the chances?
Yeah, what are the chances? And so they did a lot of work after the fact trying to prove that she was in that car. And because you could always steal it the night of or the night before, which is basically what it really was. So she was taken on the 5th, or she went to work on the 5th. And so they categorized it that she could have been missing any time from, I guess, 11 p.m. till 4 p.m. when somebody finally went by the store. I forget. There's a lot of that I'd have to go back over and read again. So the car was stolen. My understanding is that it was already up in Warner, Georgia at the time that she was kidnapped, so she could not have been there. So they eliminated it right off the bat. But it took a lot of that, and they had to verify it based on the prints and whether or not there was hair in the car. And so they did all that.
It did say that there was a possible, to compare it to possible blood stains found in the car.
Which was rust, I believe. Ended up being rust. And so the prints, what they wanted to eliminate 1,000%. And here's one of the most important things when you're trying to eliminate people. And you really have to eliminate people to get the good guy. Some law enforcement just get stuck on one guy and they don't eliminate anybody else because that's who they believe did it. That's wrong. That's the wrong part. And so when you've got all these suspects, defense is going to ask you, what about this guy? And if you can't eliminate that guy, you got reasonable doubt. And so what it looks like they were trying to do is trying to eliminate. For them to exhume her, they really were trying to eliminate this guy. They weren't trying to prove he did it. They were trying to eliminate him because that was going to be reasonable doubt, no doubt whatsoever. They also believed he was one of the parties in the robberies prior to that. And this is why he was still in the car. And they were looking at all that. And I looked at that and going, "Ooh, this has got to be the guy." And then I understand that he was already up there in Warner Robins because he stole it the early morning hours of the day before. And so, go ahead.
When you look him up, you can see where his name's in the paper a ton because he steals cars or robs things. Like he's in there all the time. And then he and his wife he gets married later and then they get arrested, I think, for growing marijuana in their house. Like, I mean, he has a pretty lengthy thing. So that was one of the things that we had talked about was like, could it have been just coincidence that, this happened in close proximity? Because of the timing, like it does seem so odd that it happened within this time frame. But also here he has this regular habit of doing these things.
So many odd things with this case. So here was my take on it. And this is just my take from one investigator. There are many investigators that look at it completely different than me. And I'm not telling you that I'm an all know everything that there is. I'm just telling you I'm good at what I do. And so in reference to the way I look at it is this type of crime is a unique crime that not every criminal does. And so that means that was a specific crime for this female, not the robbery, didn't have anything to do with that.
Right.
I think it was for her. The fact she was on her menstrual cycle may have been why she was not vaginally raped, but she could have been raped the other way. Because it appears based on the experts you look at back in the day that she was held. And if she's held, why is she held? Again, that would go back to did the husband, did he really talk himself into killing her later? Or was she held in a hotel? Or was she held up there at the party house in McIntosh for a couple of days to be used and abused? The problem with that is if I'm going to kill somebody, I take their stocking off their feet and I tie them up with their stocking and I say, go ahead and put your shoes back on. I just don't know why you would care about somebody to put their shoes back on to kill them and drag them out in the woods. And then was she killed there? Was she not killed there? The lack of blood there. I've seen all the reports where they're saying
that was another question was in the newspapers. They talked about, we think she was killed there because there was all of this blood there, but I don't recall that in what we've looked at.
No. Yeah. There was not a lot of blood there. And whether she had been there a couple of days or just hours or whatever, I think the maggots had infested her. She had been there more than 24 hours, in my opinion. They were
Right.
completely engulfed in her eyes. And she had been there for quite a while, but they were young, as they call them, juvenile.
Mhm.
They were young, and there wasn't, if I recall, any big maggots. So
Right.
she hadn't been there too terribly long, but she also wasn't there for the entire time she was killed from uh, December 5th to the 9th when she was found.
Right.
There's no way that she
Mhm.
was out there for 4 days or 3 days. And then Reverend said, now it was a little cooler, maybe. And
Mhm.
that, as y'all pointed out, it was a little cooler, and that might would
Yeah.
Yeah.
turn that a little bit.
Mhm.
But I'm not the expert on that. I mean, I just have to go with the bug guy and what they said back then, and whether or not how
Right.
good he was back then, I have no idea.
Yeah. And I think there
Hmm.
were a couple of different experts that kind of
It
weighed in
is.
on that and had the same kind of
Yeah.
same kind of
take.
opinion on that. Really struck me as odd, and maybe this is just me overthinking it, is that back in the 70s, Washington County finds her body. They transport her body, according to the paper, at like 6:00 to the funeral home, and then by 8, somebody's there to identify her body. They
Yeah.
have no fingerprints, obviously, because they have to exhume her. Her purse and all of this stuff has been left at the gas station.
The
So she has
store.
no identification, the convenience store. She has no identification on her. And it has blown my mind that back in the 70s, they were capable of identifying her within 2 hours or less, technically, because the people were there by 8. When it takes longer than that today, it seems like. Is it because of the bulletin that went out? Or
So
what do you think? How did that happen?
here's what I believe is, and there's some documentation on that, is when a body is found, we had by that time, even in the early 70s, realized that sometimes if there's not somebody missing local, they're probably they're from afar or they're from somewhere else. And so NCIC, a teletype, was put out in reference to our missing girl. And that's put into a basket that investigators will look at, and they'll say, oh, and then a body's found. And then what they do, they put the body found in the teletype, and it will match the two. It will say, well, you got one missing here, you got one found here. Y'all need to look at that. It's within days, same month. And so that would have been how the connection would have happened. That was the old days. And I'm sure that's probably what happened, because they got a call from McIntosh saying, we got a body up here. It could be y'all's girl. And you might not find that in the notes, but in talking to Jackie, he immediately went up there in reference to that. I don't know if he had anything to do with the identification, but that was normally how those happened in the 70s. Is it was a teletype matching the two,
Okay.
missing and found.
Gotcha. God, that seems like it's more effective than some of the other stuff.
Yeah. I guess it's volume now that keeps that from happening.
In this case, one of the things that you've said is that the evidence from Debra at the scene is gone.
Yeah. Well, that's what they say.
and
I still think it's out there, but they say it's not. So.
I think it's probably still out there too, but who knows? In that case, when they transport a body, and maybe it's still this way, when they're doing the autopsy, is that something where that would have automatically went to the state for processing, or would they have given that back to the agency to say, okay, you decide if you're going to send this in, or if you're going to give this to Jackson County, or whatever you're going to do, which I think Washington County would have had to keep it, right, because it was their jurisdiction that she was found in.
Washington County would have had all that, but they had a little bit of state police help.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked to both of them. None of them seem to know where the evidence is or why it was disposed of, if it was disposed of. But I do know in the 80s, a district attorney in Mobile found out that law enforcement was destroying evidence after 5 years because of a misinterpretation of what the law said. And the law basically said that evidence after 5 years can be disposed of depending on what kind of case it is. not including rape, not including murder, not including financial crimes, but stuff like burglary, where you can't find a victim after 5 years, or people's memories fade, or there's no absolute suspect in the crime, then that stuff could be destroyed. And so what some people did, or some administrators did, hey, we can clear out our evidence locker. We're never going to solve these cases anyway. They're 5 years old. Nobody's knocking on the door going, hey, what about my case? What about my case? Nobody knew about DNA. Nobody understood any of that. The only thing that was saved was prints, and those were saved in a filing cabinet that didn't get thrown away. But as far as the bulk evidence, as more evidence will come in, I will tell you, we collect more evidence than we ever use in a crime. We collect it because you just never know. And it sits there for years and years and years and years and years. And then you have to go through each case, and a judge has to sign on for it before it's destroyed. Now, the state has changed the laws to where some of these cases you have to keep for 25 years. So imagine California, as I said, had to get a warehouse that has nothing but evidence in it, in a warehouse. They had to put it organized, date, time, and however they do it, where we just had a room that you basically threw stuff in a little, or your trunk for that matter, where we had a room that you threw stuff in that would collect up over time. You go, I mean, I need room for something else. You just shoved it out the door and put it in the garbage. Now, here's a scary thing, and I'm aware of this case that happened right here in South Mississippi, and this would have been 2008. I'm aware of a chief deputy going in and clearing out their evidence locker of any case. He had just got hired by a new sheriff that just got elected, and the chief deputy, who knew better, goes in and uses the inmates to empty the locker of all the cases didn't have anything to do with them being in office, and dumped it all there. Murders, dope, rapes, everything went into the dumpster. The inmates put it in there. One, you've got terrible chain of custody evidence in every. I'm aware of a murder case that actually almost got kicked because of that, because the knife was thrown away on a murder case, because this new chief deputy came in and goes, we don't need all that. That's none of our cases. We just throw it in the dumpster. How stupid. Okay.
Oh my God.
How stupid can you be to be that? But if you put an uneducated person in a position of authority, he's going to make these stupid decisions that this one made.
Yeah.
This happened in Mississippi in the 2000s. So does it happen? Yes. We're trying to educate ourselves a little bit better so that it never happens again. And so I understand how that happened in the days in the 70s. After 5 years, they just chunked it. That's what
somebody stopped reading when they saw you can get rid of evidence after 5 years. They're like, good enough for me, and didn't read the rest of it.
The district attorney in Mobile had a case where he was looking for the evidence, and he found that out. And he goes, that's not what the law says. And so, the professionals are going back and look at it and goes, well, no, that's not what the law says. It was misinterpreted. No. It's the way we did things time and time again. So that's some of the things that a cold case investigator like me has learned, and that I try to put out there with my guys now. Now, I tell you, it falls on deaf ears, because the cliche that I always hear is we've done it that way all the time. And when that happens, I just want to go, well, we're going to do it that way.
Doesn't mean that makes it right just because you
No, it doesn't. But it was right in their mind. That's how we do it.
Yeah.
It must be right, because nobody ever challenged it.
Right.
So anyway.
Well, so I guess going back to it, would that have been something where her evidence would have automatically, like, would the standard procedure have been that post autopsy, like they're finished with that, it would have been standing there, they would have handed that to Washington County and said, okay, you need to decide if you're going to submit this? Or would they have automatically said, okay, toxicologist doing the autopsy report, we need you to submit this for testing?
So
who would have had that?
So that's a great
question.
Or
who typically would have had that?
So technically, Washington County found the body. It is their case. Mm-hmm. The state came in. The confusion is is Washington County going to send it off, or is the state going to send it off? And that's where we lose the communication, because here's what happens. A new case comes in the next day. They get to working on that one, thinking the state's doing their job. The state's thinking that the county's doing their job, and it gets bypassed. Or an investigator changes, retires, moves on, promotes, whatever, and nobody's there knocking on Washington County's door, and nobody at Washington County is knocking on the state's door saying, hey, what did you do with that evidence? They think each other has sent it, and then it's that they're waiting for the results. Time goes by, they assume no results. Nobody looks into it.
Right.
12 years later, it's thrown away. And here I am in 2012, I guess, knocking on Washington County's door. Hey, do you have that evidence? What the hell are you talking about? And so I'm used to that in these old days. But I've also found that when I'm told that it doesn't exist, actually does exist. And so I have confidence that the Janie Sanders case semen sample is going to be found. It's going to be found in another case of similar circumstances in Mobile. And I think that Debra Gunter's case, because I have found cases before Debra Gunter and after Debra Gunter that we did have the evidence. And so hopefully it will be found probably in another case file, or in some box in some retired detective's room, that when he passes away, the wife is going to look in it and go, I bet Washington County needs that. That's what I'm waiting for. That does happen, and I've seen it happen.
Maybe put an all points bulletin out to all retired investigators to check their files for.
So the cold case detective, that should be his role, and that's why I put all that out in the public and put it on Facebook, put it on the thing, because that sometimes that is how we have found evidence. That's how we even found cases that we didn't know existed.
Because you move, some of the guys, they retire, they move on to somewhere else, and so they're not keeping in touch to know who's doing stuff, but they still have the stuff hanging out in their garage.
They do.
And they live down in Florida somewhere on retirements.
Yeah. And so, they retire, they move on, and they're not keeping up with this anymore. So they don't know until they hear it somewhere. Like, oh, wait, hey, I might have something you need.
This podcast is supported by The Real Real. Meet Christine. She loves shopping. And this is the sound of fashion overload. Too many fabulous things, not enough space. So Christine started selling with The Real Real.
I've always loved collecting designer pieces. Gucci bags, Prada heels. But my style keeps evolving. Selling with The Real Real? Game changer. I earn more, and they do everything.
Seriously, just drop off your items or schedule a pickup. We handle the photos, descriptions, pricing, even shipping. You just sit back and watch your items sell fast to our 38 million members.
And I get peace of mind knowing I earn more selling with The Real Real than anywhere else.
Exactly. That's the sound of your closet working for you. The Real Real. Earn more, save time, sell fast. And right now, you can get an extra $100 site credit when you sell for the first time. Go to therealreal.com to get your extra $100. Therealreal.com. That's therealreal.com.
So do you think that if, the clothing on her and the clothing used to bind her hands, do you think if that were available today, that would be kind of the smoking gun in getting her case solved?
1,000%, because to tie those knots, what they did, there would be so many skin cells in that stocking that it would just bust open, and we would be able to prove it. Now, you're going to have a lot of her skin cells. You're going to have a lot of the detective skin cells, because you'll see you can use gloves in the day. So you're going to have that, but you can eliminate that. But you're going to have more than one. It just gives you an area of suspects that you could get. And you're going to have her shirt. It was her blouse that was tied around her is going to have skin cells and maybe blood, because when you start stabbing somebody in the 70s, you didn't have lock blades, and those things would shut on your fingers. And every case like that, when you got blood on there, it slips and you go down the blade and you cut your fingers. So is there a hospital record? Probably now we'll never know. It should have been done in the 70s. Is there a hospital somebody with a severe cut of their hand. That would have been helpful to find. I didn't find where anybody did that. And you would need to go to local hospitals. We know it happened in Pascagoula. I mean, she was kidnapped in Gautier. You got her found in McIntosh. I would do every hospital all the way to every one of them, because somewhere he's coming back here or he's going further north. And you do those hospitals. And if it was severe enough, he would have went and got stitches.
Yeah.
That would.
And that's something too, like anybody that, you know, would have been around in these areas where she went missing or where she was found. You know, I know that we have a lot of people here that are like listening to it, because I've had a lot of local friends talk about, you're talking about McIntosh. And I'm like, yeah, no, we're not that far. But, you know, did you see somebody that had their hands wrapped up? You know, did they have bandages on them? Like, then that kind of stood out. I mean, that's something that people like, sometimes that'll like actually, you know, stand out to people more. Like, I remember mostly they had this big white bandage on their hand or whatever. And, you know, you were talking about, you know, knives closing up or whatever, but they said they thought that it was a small pocket knife. For 32 stab wounds, I can't imagine holding on to a small pocket knife type thing. But, and not, that just seems difficult for one.
It would be. And he would cut himself. I'm telling you, that knife would slide down the fingers after the first 2 or 3 cuts. If there's any blood, if she's alive, he was stabbing her, and the blood is squirting like that. I'm telling you, his hand's going to slip down that blade because blood is boiling. It will slip down that blade and cut his fingers. As sure as I'm sitting here, they will be cut. How deep they are, how aggressive he's stabbing. I would think 32 times, a lot of stabbing. You can also see if he, So if he's stabbing her and he's stabbing her, I'm telling you, and that blade is changing directions, then that blade is slipping in his hand. He is getting a better grip on it because it's cutting the piss out of his hand, and he is stabbing. He probably did both hands. And so just imagine this: if someone reads this, it worked at some store, and a guy came in that is a regular up in McIntosh. And they remember because of this that he could have cut his hands, and she remembers the blood on the door that she had to clean up before the manager came in that next morning. That may be all it takes to break this case.
Yeah.
You know exactly who it is. And then once you run his history, you see where this guy's in jail for rape or been in jail for murder, or you've been in jail for, if this is a sexually motivated crime. To me, it appears to be a sexually motivated crime. Strange abduction crime that I look at, even though that we can't prove she was sexual, that she was raped. There is just too much there that I believe it's 100% a sexually motivated crime. Why take her if it's just for money? Why take her unless she knew it? And still,
and because if you link it to the other 2 robberies, like we were talking about earlier, okay, maybe they weren't their type or whatever, but why leave them alive? You know, that doesn't.
Why leave them to alive and kill this one?
Right. Like, okay, they don't, maybe they don't match your, you know, whatever your criteria are as far as like the abduction part, but you've just left 2 people alive who can identify you. So you would think that for somebody who has no problem murdering, they wouldn't have left them alive. It would have been a spree that evening. So that part is what made me question, like, but were they really related? And then they can't, there's no way to know, I guess, whether she was strangled first or before, like, was she strangled?
There is.
Before she was stabbed?
So the stabbing appears to be, she appears to be dead before the stabbing. If I remember right, there's blood, but there's not a lot of blood. It's not spurting out. It's not all over her body. It's not all over the grass. If she was killed there and I'm stabbing you in the jugular, that is sprinkling, that is squirting out. That is, it's going to be all over the place. When
you're going to get like that arterial spray, right?
You're going to get all that. Not only that, the ants are going to be, there's going to be a trail of ants down that blood.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're going to see that. Them ants love that. And every crime I've ever seen, them ants are there in no time. It's like they're just waiting for
Yeah.
blood to drop on the ground. And whoop, they're there. And so there would have been a trail of blood you would have been able to see. If nothing else, you would have seen the ants.
Right.
But I don't know the skill of the investigators that were there or the officers was there. Did they step all over everything and scatter the ants? Probably.
Yeah.
But there was enough there that I think they could have been able to
If it
tell that.
wasn't at that scene, then we don't know where the original
where?
scene
Right.
was. Yeah.
Right. Because you
And
would
so-
expect there would be a very messy
Mm-hmm.
room or something somewhere. It
Right.
wouldn't be, if that
Absolutely.
was, and then you'd have to transport.
Yeah.
But like you were talking about, there's not a lot of blood at the scene. From what we looked at on the weather stuff, that it wasn't rainy, so it's not like it just got washed away.
And it was cold. It was
Yeah.
a little,
Mm-hmm.
it should have been there. It should have been there.
Right.
And so if it's not there, then where was she killed at? And why was she killed somewhere else? And why was she left there where she was killed? So the problem I've always got, if somebody kills somebody, why are you going to put them into your car, drive them somewhere else with risk of getting caught and dump them out? But there are killers like that. It happened on Janie Sanders. She was killed somewhere else. All of her blood, a quarter of her blood was leaked out of her body. She was not killed where she was found. She was raped and somewhere within a 5-mile radius of where she was found, or the timeline doesn't fit. And so she's abducted from Pascagoula. Deborah's abducted from Gautier, and both of them end up in Alabama. And one is in 5, the other one's in 78. How does that happen? And then you got the one in 76. Now she went the other way, but she's ligature strangled with her clothing. Although she's not stabbed, you still have the connection to Little General late at night. She's strangled. She's nude. She's drowned in water and strangled, ligature strangling. So is Debra Gunter. Almost identical with the exception of the 32 stab wounds. And you think about the monster and what it takes for someone to kidnap somebody, hold them at bay while you're driving 30, 40 or however many miles you're doing. How do you control them? How do you keep them from not jumping out of the car or what? There could be
You'd
two.
be swerving all over the road,
So maybe that's where the strangulation happens. Maybe purposely doesn't strangle them to death first.
Right. Does it to put them unconscious. And then when they come being from unconscious, then they're in fear. They know now that he's almost, and then they're quiet. They're not gonna be strangled again. They're scared to death, and maybe they'll survive. You're always gonna have that survival thing. Maybe I'll survive if I just let him do what he wants to do. I mean, that's typically how the survivors have said it. I'm just gonna do what he wants me to do, and maybe I'll survive. And some of them do. So
do we know? Does Deborah have any fingernail? Did they do? I know we don't have them, but do we know if they did fingernail scrapings? If she fought back?
They did after they dug her up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They absolutely did after they dug her up. We should have those. Those should be at the crime lab.
Yeah.
I don't know what they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, so we have a public record request into DFS for any kind of documents that they have. And we got a thing that we got their automated response that, they have to check with the DA's office before they can release it to us. So I need to follow up with them because that's been pending for a little while and we typically hear back fairly quickly. But while I was waiting for that, I sent them an email and just said, hey, we're, doing some research. And I was just wondering how common was it back in the 70s for toxicologists to do an autopsy? And they gave me back a very, vague response of, well, really anyone that was trained to do an autopsy, and gave a couple of examples, which a toxicologist was not one that was included, would have done those. And I was like, okay, but how common was it for a toxicologist to do this is what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Were they trained to do this? And so we went back and forth with getting kind of dodgy answers on it before finally they asked, is there a specific case that you're talking about? And I was like, yeah, actually there is. And I have a public records request in, and they never answered me again.
Right.
So we haven't heard back yet. But I'm going to follow up with them this week because I'm like, would kind of like to see those to know, did they have anything at all that was ever submitted? Because if they did, could they have something still there by chance that could be of any kind of use?
So in Mississippi, they have a warehouse that has all these old cases in it. Okay. And so when you call the crime lab, you're going to get some young person that has only been working there since computers. And I'm telling you, you have to, the public records request, they're going to go through the computer stuff first. And if somebody is downloading or put in the information, then you may get lucky on that. But there's a warehouse that has evidence in it. It's getting the right person to go there and really want to look for it. And the only way I've ever been successful in doing that is you have to sell the case to them. And I don't mean like monetarily value. I mean, you have to make them believe this is the case of cases. You're going to be a hero. And if you can find this information, I mean, we may solve the case and you'll be able to put a murderer in jail. And when you sell it to them in a way and they're invested, they will dig the world up to find that information because they're going to be the hero of the case. And you have to almost make them be that.
And it's like, look, this could be a possible like multi murder. Like it could be a serial murder for all we know.
Absolutely.
If you're looking at these,
oh my God, I can't tell you how many times I ran into people would not help me because it wasn't. It ain't in the computer. We ain't got it no more. And I said, that's not what I'm talking about. Long before computers.
Yeah, no, I need you to look in the filing cabinet.
Yeah,
or the boxes and over on the shelves.
In the dungeon, I ain't going down there spooky down there. Or whatever.
That thing's been archived.
Yeah.
Like
we need to get a law student or somebody over there that's interning for us and say, hey, we have an intern. We'll send them over. They'd be happy to help you.
Yeah.
The intern will be more motivated than the person that is the overkeeper of the records. The intern wants to show them up. And that's if an intern to do that, they'll go over there and make them look like shit because they're going to find what they claim is.
Yeah.
One of the things that you've said before is that cold cases don't just fade because of lack of evidence. Sometimes it's about priorities, and this kind of falls in line with that.
Right.
So from your perspective, what role does culture, politics, or jurisdictional issues play in investigations, or specifically in this one?
So sheriff departments are different than police departments because sheriff departments are elected and police officers are hired. And so you really don't, in police, we're under civil service where sheriff's department really weren't. They are now, most of them are. And so politics plays a role in it. And I say politics, it's not like some governors calling up saying, hey, y'all need to solve that case. It's not what I'm talking about.
Right.
The political aspect of it is that there's so many cases that come before us. As an investigator that works, as I said, felony shoplifting one day, a rape the next day, a boat burglary the next day, and blah, blah, blah. You got all these cases, you look for degree of solvability. And so degree of solvability is your case A, B, and C. You've got suspects in A, then you need to work on that. And then B, you may have a video nowadays, back in then you didn't. But now you may have a video that you got to go research. So I'm going to put that to the side. And C is there's absolutely no witnesses, no nothing. It's a lawnmower stolen, and you don't even have a serial number. You can't even run it in pawn shop. So that one's going to go to the wayside. More of those happen than what you think. And so you have a degree of responsibility in that. And so a solvability factor. And so the same way with the crime, the homicide. Homicides, you work on those really hard the first couple of days. And you always hear that cliche in the first 48 hours. If you hadn't got information, it's harder to solve. And so investigators will work on that. And for whatever reason, that is hooked in their brain that in 48 hours after that, I got to go to my other cases. And so you got administrators and the problem with administrators that have never been investigators, they don't really know how an investigation is put together. There are some administrators that have never worked a case in their life. They come up, they go through traffic, they write tickets. They're very popular. They're very well liked. They get up here, and this is where the politics plays a role. And they get their self up in a high rank, and they think they know everything. And then what they'll do is they'll dictate to you which cases you work. This is a friend of mine, and he had a burglary, and his lawnmower was stolen in that burglary out of the garage, and I want you to work on this one above all these other ones. Well, Captain, I got a murder here. I don't care about the murder. You ain't got no suspect in that murder. Let's get this lawnmower done first. That has happened. And so if you've got somebody in administration that has no concept of investigations, they are difficult to work with, but you got to work with them because you're your boss.
Right.
And then, when you beat an officer down or a detective down so much, you're just going to go, okay, I just got to go home, drink a beer, and take the weekend off. I got to let these cases go. They're beating me up in my brain. And if you think of all the negative crap that is poured into a detective's mind, he has to have some relief, and some of that he's going to weed out the minute you see the case. It's going to come on his desk. You'll go, oh my God, I hate these cases. And it never gets seen. So that plays a role in all these cases. There's so much back and forth that you've got to deal with in these cases. So politics can play a role depending on your administration and whose friend's lawnmower got stolen. That does play a role in it sometimes.
Yeah.
Not all the time, but it does play.
Does burnout also precipitate cherry picking cases as far as like,
absolutely. If it's on a silver platter, the investigator will work that one first because it's on a silver platter. And he goes, all we got a suspect. All they got to do is my grand jury packet, send my grand jury packet to the DA's office, go testify to the jury, and then they'll probably make a plea deal, and then I ain't got to worry about that one. That one's solved. And so you got a bunch of old cases. The harder they are to solve, especially nowadays, everybody wants video, audio. They want eyewitnesses. They want all that. And if you can eliminate all that in the very beginning, then you're going like, and the old knock on the door days have gone away for the most part. You get a good investigator who'll go knock door to door to find out everything he needs. And we have some good ones at Pascagoula that do that now. They'll go door to door and knock on. Jackson County Sheriff's Department as well. They do fairly well. Small departments, it just ain't happening all the time. Like
Yeah. Oh, and they're understaffed. There's not enough. Like, that's the one thing that we talk about is that, there's this, we try to be conscientious about making sure we are not being unnecessarily critical because there are, staffing issues. There's only so much time in the day. And God knows there are times that I need to do stuff that I'm like, I just can't. I don't have enough time. Yeah. And so, I know
and we're aware how far behind we are. So, we can imagine what you guys are going through.
And it's like, sometimes it doesn't really matter how good of an investigator you've got if they're overworked. There's only so much that they can fit in one day. And also, I can only imagine the mental and emotional toll that looking at cases like this day in and day out take. Like, that's a lot of stuff to carry around. And we're not even doing investigations, but reading about it all the time, it will change your perspective on things. And like, I know that my son would probably say like, oh my God, she tells me all the time, you've got to be more conscientious of your surroundings, like pay attention. Are you watching all of these things? Because you never know when you're going to need to know these things. And, I think that sometimes it's perceived as we're being, critical, but I think there's also sometimes there are agencies or investigators, not agencies in general, there are investigators that we've encountered that they just really don't care to do that job. And so it's like, that is not in my job description. That is your job description.
Right.
I don't what is it? So
you get bad and good in all aspects of any kind of work. Bad teachers, bad principals, bad policemen, bad judges, bad lawyers. You're going to have that in every walk of life that there is. And so the administrators should look at that and go, oh, you got to get out if you're not doing what you need to do. And that's why we have what we call status reports. And if you ain't got something that you should have had done on your status report and you ain't got a good reason why you haven't done it, then you need to find something else to do with the police department. Most people, and I will tell you, I've had some go, man, I can't wait to get investigations. I can't wait, get up there, and they're going like, what do I do? What do I do? And you can tell them every day, this is what you need to do first.
Yeah.
Go this route, go door to door, go this, go that. And they go, man, how do you ever get caught up? Well, you don't get caught up. You got to keep
there
on.
is. What is that? What does that mean?
What's caught up when you don't right? And I said, you got to get to the cases that you can. And obviously there's a tier. The worst cases up here,
Priority.
you got to work those because there may be a killer out there that's preying on other people. Rapists, you've got to really work those for that. A robber's here today, gone tomorrow. You're going to have those no matter what. And they came in and said they had a gun and robbed the store. You might want to put that on the back burner a little bit, unless you have a rash of those, which we do sometimes. Right. And so if you're the investigator and you can prioritize what you're doing, it's a whole lot better. But there's also a system that will fix all these cases, and the way to fix that is using people just like y'all. And if I know you know what I'm fixing to say is that they're doing this to y'all when y'all call and ask for records. They go, oh my God, what are they doing? What do they want? What do they want?
Yeah.
Y'all to them are the bad guys when you're actually not. You're actually doing things. You try not to be critical of it. I am more critical of law enforcement than what you two have been, because I've seen some of the things we do silly. And the only thing I could do is teach now and try to help them with that. But if we gave that information to y'all to research like y'all do, y'all would find out more stuff quicker, because that's the only case you got before you. You would find out a lot more stuff that you then could turn over to the investigator. He can look at and go, well, shit, that's great. Let's do this. Let's go that route. I can't tell you how many cases have been solved that way by a web sleuth that has looked at the information that we law enforcement have put out there, and they connect the dots where we ain't got time to connect the dots.
Well, there was one case that we just got confirmation on that we had pulled a ton of records, and we've been working on it for a couple of years now. The suspect in the case has 5 murder-related charges now. This is one that infuriates me. With his most recent one occurring in 2024, it actually was an attempted murder charge. He had been in jail just a few weeks earlier for domestic violence against his wife, and then gets out on bond and shoots her and kidnaps her kid. And we were able to we going through, and we're like looking through the court records, and we're like, holy crap, the murder weapon was never found in the case that we're looking at. But then we have a weapon that matches the caliber of the jackets and all of the things that were recovered during the autopsy in a subsequent case where they found it under his floorboard. And we know that ballistics were never done to compare them. And we're like, that could have been, I mean, it could not be. I don't know. We don't know. But it was never looked at. When you have somebody that has an extensive criminal record like that, these are things that need to be looked at, because what ends up happening is you run into something like, this is somebody who is shown a pattern of violent crimes, repeated violent crime, and almost always while they're on bond. And it's like, this is leaving the door open for him to continue doing this. Yes. And eventually he's going to end up murdering somebody else.
I'm sure, if he hadn't already. So let me tell you I'm going to walk you through exactly how that happens where we miss stuff like that. And it's very easy to do. And so in a day, let's just say it's Monday morning, I come in, I've got 5 brand new cases. Okay. That doesn't have anything to do with the cases I had the week following to that. And I will tell you, and I had to map it out. In 1 month and 30 days, I had 47 cases that was assigned. Some of those were assigned more than one a day. And so you go down through them. They were all major cases. There was maybe 1 or 2 that we call a PR case, Well, we just call them, say, sorry, you didn't have a serial number on your weed eater. I'm sorry. Nothing I can do for you on that. It's a green weed eater. There's 1,000 green weed eaters out there. And so in a day's investigation, you get all these cases. So Monday morning, I laid out all my cases and I would look at them and go, okay, I need to call this. So I need to call this, this. Friday, I made an appointment for someone to come in to interview a victim in reference to maybe a sexual assault or an ag assault. And so I've got them scheduled, say, at 8:00. Okay. So at 8:00, instead of me going over the brand new cases I got for Monday morning, at 8:00, I am refreshing myself with the case at hand that I'm going to interview the guy on, because I don't want to miss something in the interview. Right. And so I'm sitting there reading over the case. I've got 5 more cases. I'm reading over this new case. The phone rings. Hey, we got an armed robbery at the package store. We need you there right now. I have to put everything down. I have to go there. Hopefully I get there in time, get the information, come back with a brand new case, put it on my desk, and then start rereading the case again. I've just got this new case in my brain because I've just interviewed one. And so I'm there doing that. And then my victim calls up and says, look, I can't make it today. My baby's sick. Can we do it next week? Okay, what's a good time for you? I'll call you. Click. And so you're going like, okay, now what case do I get on? And so now you're having to get on either one of your other cases, or you reschedule, or you've got 2 or 3 other people that's coming in. They never schedule that you do. The witnesses will never do it. The victims will never do it. They will not be there, Johnny, on the spot when they tell you. They have different motives why. They have reluctance in coming forward. They're scared the suspect's going to hunt them down. And then witnesses stop calling you. And so then you're half a day trying to find the witness, trying to get them to come in because it's a major case. And we have to have a status report now. And so we have to at least show where we've tried to attempt to get that guy to come in or female to come in, and they have it. Then we apply to close the case for lack of witness. And that takes tremendous amounts of time and effort and strength. And then in between that time, you may be helping one of your other detectives help them interview because they've got to take their kid to the doctor. And so you're sitting in an interview, you know nothing about the case because it wasn't assigned to you. This is every day at our cases. And so the common layperson, they don't know that. They know they got a case or somebody got a case, and why ain't y'all solved it? And they never think about the real work that goes on there. And so I'm not saying that happens every day, but that is what I did, to work 40 cases in a 30-day period. Mm-hmm. And then next month you have 40 more cases. Well, you got to solve them at some point, and you got to make up days somewhere. So 40 cases turns into 60 cases, turns into 80 cases. And now by the end of the year, you've got, 500 cases, and you're going like, I've only solved 1 or 2, really, that were decent cases.
In a case like the one, I was just going to say, in the case like the one that Carrie was talking about, is there a point in a case like that where it becomes a little higher priority because of the history behind the case? Or is it just like any other case you have so many of the we call them high profile cases, but murder cases and rape cases and things.
So in reference to that case, that I would say, I would want to know, were all the crimes committed in the same jurisdiction or same city? Mm-hmm. Like Moss Point will have an armed robbery. We'll have an armed robbery. It could be the same guy, but I'll never know about Moss Points because none of our computers talk to each other. And so they don't know.
We know that a couple of them are going to be same agency, and we know that some of them are going to be sheriff's office.
Different agency. Okay.
So it's going to be like the most recent one in 24 that went to the sheriff's office. And so I told
So you see the totality of all of them.
Yeah. So I'd immediately tell the brother, call the sheriff's office and tell them about your case. That way they know ahead of time, this, they need to call the police department about this. And because the systems don't talk to each other. But we know that in this instance with those 3 that occurred, he was out on bond awaiting trial for capital murder and attempted murder when he caught a new attempted murder charge. They dropped the capital murder and attempted murder charges on November 1st. They're dismissed without prejudice. And then on November 2nd, he makes bail. And then on November 5th, he gets indicted on the new attempted murder charge and ends up taking a plea deal on it. That's the only one that he's taken a deal on. The rest of them have been dismissed. The current ones are pending. The one from 2024. It's insane. Beyond the investigation and the investigative details and all of that, this is a case about a 20-year-old woman whose life was brutally cut short. How do you, as an investigator, balance the pursuit of justice with honoring the victims and their families?
So one, you need to keep the family posted on what your status is on that case. You should always talk to the family. Whether or not they're young or old, it really doesn't matter to me. If it's an old man and he has life, he should be treated the same way. Their case should be treated the same way as somebody 20 years old. So I don't look at it that way, but I look at, you should tell the victim. The victim is not just the man dead or the female dead. It's the entire family of friends. Right. All of them are victims of who they lost. And so I always personally, what I do is like to talk to everybody. We fail on that a lot of times. We should never fail on that. It goes with the saying with missing people. We've talked about missing people. When people are missing, we don't keep the family posted on it. They're going to think we don't give a crap. Some of that could be right, but they're going to think we don't because we should be keeping them posted on it. We also should tell them, I'm not going to call you every day because I know I'm not that I have other cases, and let them know what's going on. And if you educate somebody, they tend to be on your side a lot more than against you if you don't do that. For me, that's what I do.
Yeah.
It works for me.
That does seem to be, when we talk to families, when they at least have some kind of communication with the agencies on not even a frequent regular basis, but just a regular basis, even if it's like hey, I know they're going to call me once a year. On this date, they're going to call me once a year and they're going to give me an update on it, or they're going to call me every 6 months or whatever. They are a lot, even if the case has not moved an inch, they are still, I don't want to say they're happier or more pleased because they're not given the status of the case, but they tend to get along with the agencies and the investigators better. They are less, obviously less angry or frustrated with the fact that the case is still unsolved when they know they can count on them to call and tell them, like, sorry.
And they tend to have a more realistic expectation of the law enforcement too. They don't expect that you guys are going to call them daily. I mean, there are a few out there that are just, they need that for whatever reason, but they just need to know that even if they call, if they really need to talk to somebody, that that person's going to call them back in a reasonable time too.
Yeah.
So what I normally do is, if I have a victim, I look at that victim. If it was my daughter, how would I want the police to call me in reference to that? Now, a lot of times we don't have that empathy. We don't have any of that connection. And so we don't have that. So when I put myself in that position to go, this could be my loved one one day, where will I feel? How will I feel if law enforcement ain't calling me, let me know what's going on? I'm gonna be ticked off. I'm gonna go give them my peace of mind. And here's what happens. Law enforcement goes then, well, I ain't just gonna work your case. And I've heard that before. I ain't gonna do nothing with your case. You keep bugging me, forget that, and hang up on them. Oh, that's the wrong thing to do, because that's gonna breed a lot of mistrust, aggravation. You're gonna hear all kinds of things about that, and the public gets on that. You're gonna be crucified. Just don't do it. Be a victim. Feel like you're a victim, like they're a victim, and you'll understand where they're coming from. But we don't do that, and that's unfortunate, really.
That, I think that's something that I've actually talked to some of the investigators that I talked to here about, like, just make the call. I know that it takes time, that you're really busy. Just call. And I'm like, 'cause I tell you what, if anything ever happened to my son and somebody didn't call and update me on what was going on, I would be down here raising hell. And like, that's just how it would be. I hate to say it. I mean, I know I like you guys, whatever, but I would be on your doorstep if I had no updates to know anything going on. I'd be on your doorstep every day until I got an update.
That's right.
Even if it was just to say, I'm sorry, there's no update, but at least talk to the person.
Just make the contact. That really is, I mean, you may even get a voicemail, but you can leave a message. I didn't realize, I think, that Debra's mother had passed away. And I guess just in my mind when we're talking about it, you don't think about how much time really has passed. And I'm struggling with this whole like time passing and people getting older anyway, because now we're in senior year, and it's hit me that like never in my mind did I factor in that my kid actually grows up. And so that's hit really hard over the last couple of weeks. And so I'm struggling a little bit there. And I guess it was kind of this same concept as we're looking through this when we read that Debra's mom has passed, because she hadn't given, she had talked to in one of the interviews, that you guys have done. And Debra's dad had passed before her mother. And so then you start thinking about it and you're like, gosh, this was from the 70s. And what are the chances that the person responsible is still alive? And so what does her sister, as far as I know, she is still around. She's still alive, right? Debra's sister.
Yeah. That's not her. She was.
What would justice look like now, this far down the road?
Well, it's hard to say. Is the guy still out there doing this stuff? Is he in prison? Or is he dead? Justice for Debra needs to be there, if for nothing else, for the public to see that we never forget about these people. They've been forgotten for many years, and the only thing worse that we could do now is forget them again, and that just ain't going to happen. Now, it's not my case. I can't work it. The only thing I can do is keep it out there like we're doing here. I know enough about it, and I will tell you that the agency has told media to call me about their case in reference to this because they don't know anything about it. That's because all them guys are brand new. I only found out about it because I had a case of my own I was trying to solve. And that was Janie Sanders. And I call it the Janie Sanders syndrome because there's so many cases that have come up that I've helped. And some of them were solved. The skeletal remains mainly is because of Janie Sanders. And so enough information is out there. Thank God y'all were doing a podcast on the story, and that's going to get out further, hopefully. And people will realize not only that, they're going to hear this stuff. They're going to go, okay, that officer said this. Let me go back to that department and ask this question this way, and maybe I'll get some better result. Or is there a new detective there that maybe don't even know about that file being in the dust dungeon? And so you could reopen the case that way. And if it gets solved because of that, that's a win. That's a win-win. How you do it, putting these out here. We may not solve this one, but we may solve another one that somebody watching this program says, let me go see how many we got at our department. And they may some brand new detective dig up some old cases and see there's DNA in there, and now with the advancements there, solve their case. That's a win.
Yeah. I would like to actually do some listener submission questions.
A question can be asked that we didn't even thought about.
Yeah. So
and then they go like, man, that's a great question,
Yeah. What is the answer to that?
Why man, because I
never know.
Yeah.
I know. You never know.
Sometimes they do ask stuff, and I'm like, I don't really know. Let me find out about that.
The investigator thinks he has all the answers. He ain't got all the answers. He needs to go do something else because none of us got all the answers. I have a problem with that. But and we ain't got all the questions either. So if we get a question, we go like, "Well, I'll be damned." I mean that's good. That's good stuff. That's what we should be doing anyway.
Yeah.
With these cases.
Yeah, so this right here is an opportunity to tell you guys out there that are watching this.
Yeah.
If you have any questions, please tell us, drop them in the comments, call us, email us, do whatever it takes. Just get the questions to us because any question is...
Here's
Here
your
it
sign.
is. Yes.
This is
There
the
it is.
sign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we
Here's
should get one of those made so we can just like
That's
hold it
right.
up.
Here's your sign.
Yeah.
That ought to be our cliche. That ought to be that. That should be. Here's your sign. Talk.
Yeah,
Yeah.
here's your sign.
Yeah.
Yep.
Here's the sign.
Yep.
That's awesome.
So-
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
Oh,
Thank
no
you
problem.
so much.
I love it. I love it. So just let me know when the next one is.
If you have any information regarding the abduction and murder of Debra Gunter, please contact the Jackson County Sheriff's Office by phone at 228-769-3063 or through their mobile app. You may also submit an anonymous tip through Mississippi Coast Crime Stoppers via telephone at 877-787-5898 or through their website, which is linked in the episode description.
Since Alabama Cold Case Advocacy's creation, we have dedicated innumerable hours to researching and networking in an effort to provide the largest platform we can to the cases we share. We shoulder all associated expenses with Alabama Cold Case Advocacy out of our own pocket, including the subscription fees for researching and production of the Unforgotten podcast to provide a cost-free avenue for the victims' families of those cases.
We hope you will join in our efforts to raise awareness of Alabama's missing and murdered and support these families who have been forced to carry the immeasurable loss of their loved ones and the fight for answers. If you appreciate our mission and you are inspired to make a donation, your extra support will enable the ACCA to continue our research, share the cold cases, and help those families know that they are also unforgotten.
Unforgotten is an Alabama cold case advocacy podcast, recorded in conjunction with Riverside FM, hosted and distributed by Red Circle to your favorite podcast platforms. Content, research, artwork, and production are by Sellers and Stormy of Alabama Cold Case Advocacy. Credits for music, sound clips, special mentions, and research sources can be found in each episode's description. Your support helps us continue producing Unforgotten and further Alabama Cold Case's mission of advocacy and awareness. There are a few ways you can help us light the path. Make a one-time or monthly donation to Unforgotten through Red Circle, sign up for a one-time or recurring donation through the ACCA website, or subscribe to the Unforgotten Patreon channel for early access to ad-free episodes. You will find the links for all three in our episode descriptions. Another cost-free way to be of great help is to follow us on social media, but most importantly, whatever you do, tell everyone you know about these cases. Sharing their stories is one of the most effective ways to help find resolution for Alabama's cold cases. Be the spark. Thank you for listening, and until next time, remember, justice may be delayed, but the victims and their families remain unforgotten.
That was good. You did good on that one.
Thanks.
Time is precious, and so are our pets. So time with our pets is extra precious. That's why we started Dutch. Dutch provides 24/7 access to licensed vets with unlimited virtual visits and follow-ups for up to 5 pets. You can message a vet at any time and schedule a video visit the same day. Our vets can even prescribe medication for many ailments, and shipping is always free. With Dutch, you'll get more time with your pets and year-round peace of mind when it comes to their vet care. Go to Dutch.com to get vet care that is always there for just $92 a year.